Tommaso Cioni.
A name that, I mean, if you typed it into a search bar in 2025,
Or even, the first couple of weeks of January 2026?
right, the internet would have basically shrugged at you. You might have found, a Rate My Professor review?
Probably a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe a blurry photo of a guy playing a Fender bass in some dim-lit Tucson bar.
Exactly. A school newsletter. He was, by all metrics, an anonymous figure.
Which is the baseline for almost everyone.
For 99.9% of us, yeah. He was a private citizen living this very specific, seemingly curated life in the desert. But fast forward to right now, early February 2026, and the algorithm has just completely devoured him.
He's trending globally.
Globally. His face is everywhere. And it's not because of his bass playing or his teaching methods. It's because he has become the anchor point of this sensational mystery involving one of America's most famous media families.
It's such a massive, disorienting shift, and the tension here is it's incredibly thick. On one side, you have this portrait of a beloved, a somewhat eccentric science teacher, a devoted family man. On the other, you have a media firestorm, and I really don't use that term lightly, labeling him a prime suspect.
And that label, it carries a weight that the facts sometimes really struggle to lift.
So here's the mission for this deep dive. We aren't here to solve a crime. We're here to understand the person at the center of this storm. We've got a stack of investigative reports, biographical data, the timeline of the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. We're going to look past the breaking news banners to figure out who Tommaso Cioni actually is.
It's basically a case study in how quickly a human life gets flattened into a character, you know? You're either the saint or the sinner, and the media just hates the gray area in between.
So let's start with that gray area. Or maybe the reality of the man before all the cameras showed up. We know he's been in Tucson, Arizona since 2006.
Right. He's deeply embedded there. He's of Italian descent. And from everything we can gather, that isn't just a footnote for him. It's a huge pillar of his identity. But what really stands out in the biographical data is the specific language people use to describe his personality. And this comes from the people closest to him.
You're talking about the description from his wife, Annie Guthrie.
Annie Guthrie, yes. And context here is key. Annie is Savannah Guthrie's sister, but she is also a professional writer and poet. She chooses her words very carefully.
And she described him as who was it?
She's described him as a great manifester.
Great manifester. Okay, you have to unpack that for me.
I know.
Because to a cynic, or maybe just to me, that sounds a little, I don't know, vague, like it's something you'd read on a motivational poster. What does it actually mean?
Well, it seems to be less about wishful thinking and more about willpower. She's been quoted saying he writes poetry through the way he lives his life.
Okay.
So when you combine manifester with that sentiment, you get a profile of someone who is intensely deliberate. He doesn't just let life happen to him. He curates his environment. He shapes his reality.
So he's an active participant in building his world.
Precisely. But here's where it gets tricky. In a marriage, a great manifester is magnetic, right? It's someone who makes things happen.
Sure.
But flip the lens to a criminal investigation. Suddenly, that same trait, that intense desire to control one's environment, that can be read very differently by a detective.
Right. Deliberate starts to sound like calculated.
And controlling the environment starts to sound a lot like covering your tracks.
Yeah.
That's the danger. The trait itself is neutral. It's the context that provides the coloring. But if we stick to his life before this incident, this deliberateness shows up in his hobbies. He's kind of a Renaissance man type.
Yeah, let's run through the dossier here. First,
Yeah.
the music. He's an electric bass guitarist. And he's not just, jamming in the garage. He's active in the Tucson scene.
And think about the psychology of the bass player for a second.
Oh, here we go. I knew you'd have a theory on this.
Well, just think about it. The lead singer wants the adoration. The lead guitarist wants the glory. The bass player is the foundation. They're holding the rhythm and the melody together. It requires a steady, grounded personality. You rarely find a chaotic narcissist playing bass.
So you're saying his choice of instrument suggests someone who is comfortable in a supporting role, someone who doesn't need to be the loudest voice.
It suggests discipline and a willingness to be part of a whole. It aligns with that whole family man image. And then you have the culinary side.
The homemade pasta.
The homemade pasta. He's apparently very serious about it.
Which, let's be honest, is a pain to do.
It is. It's a process. You can't rush it. It's tactile, it's precise, and it's nurturing. Again, it fits Annie's description of writing poetry through life. You're manifesting something complex for the people you love.
And he also literally writes poetry. That's a shared language between him and his wife.
Which is so significant. It tells you their relationship is built on this deep intellectual and emotional communication. They're creative collaborators. So up until late January 2026, the profile is cohesive. A soulful, artistic guy who keeps the rhythm and feeds his family.
But he's not a starving artist. He has a very serious day job. And honestly, this is the part of the profile that I find most interesting because it sort of contradicts that poet vibe. He's a science teacher.
And not just any science teacher. He's at Basis Oro Valley.
And for anyone who doesn't know, explain what Basis is, because this isn't just showing up and, putting on a video for the kids.
No, not at all. Basis schools are consistently ranked among the top in the nation. They are academic pressure cookers. Rigorous. To teach there, you need deep subject matter expertise.
And what's his role?
He's a subject expert teacher for 6th grade science, but he also teaches AP biology to high schoolers.
AP Bio is no joke. That's college-level material.
Exactly. So this tells us he has some serious intellectual horsepower. He has to break down incredibly complex systems, genetics, cellular respiration for teenagers. It requires patience and a very sharp analytical mind.
Right. You can't just manifest your way through an AP biology curriculum.
No, you need hard facts.
And within biology, he has a specific passion.
Reptiles.
He's a lizard guy.
He is fascinated by them. And this is another one of those details. It's like a Rorschach test,
Totally. I mean, growing up, the science teacher with the terrarium in the corner, that was always the favorite. It made science real.
Of course. It's the cool teacher vibe.
Yeah.
It shows a love for the natural world, even the scaly parts, but
move that detail into a crime blotter.
And suddenly he was obsessed with cold-blooded creatures.
Yeah.
The media loves to use reptiles as a shorthand for something weird or a lack of empathy. It's a cheap literary device, but it works on the public imagination.
We have to be really careful not to let the current headlines rewrite his past.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have the poet, the bassist, the AP bio teacher. Now we have to introduce the catalyst. The event that took this man from the classroom to the cable news chyron. The Guthrie connection.
This is the multiplier effect. If Tommaso were just a guy in Tucson whose mother-in-law went missing, this would be a local story. Page 4 of the Arizona Daily Star.
But he's Savannah Guthrie's brother-in-law.
Correct. Nancy Guthrie, the missing woman, is Savannah's mother. And when you involve a network news anchor of that stature, the media machinery doesn't just turn on, it goes into overdrive.
The spotlight is just blindingly bright.
Immediately.
Instantly. So let's get to the timeline. Saturday, January 31st, 2026. What are the hard facts of that night?
The facts are sparse, and that's actually part of the problem. Nancy Guthrie is 84. Tommaso and Annie, his wife, were with her that evening. They had dinner.
Just normal family stuff.
By all accounts, yes. And then Tommaso and Annie dropped Nancy off at her home.
Okay.
And that is the last confirmed sighting. They are the last known people to see her.
Which automatically puts them at the top of the list for law enforcement. That's not suspicion. It's just...
That's just how investigations work. 100%. Last person to see them is a category, not an accusation.
Right.
You interview them to establish a baseline.
Right. What was her mood? What was she wearing?
All of that. It's information gathering.
But the media did not stay in the information gathering phase for very long. And this is where we have to talk about Ashley Banfield.
We do. She has been reporting on this aggressively. And she has pivoted the narrative from missing person to potential foul play very, very quickly. She's used the term prime suspect in relation to Tommaso Cioni.
I want to pause on that phrase. Prime suspect. Is that an official legal term in this case?
No, and this is so crucial for you to understand. Prime suspect is often a media creation. In the eyes of the law, you're a person of interest, then maybe a suspect, then a defendant. As of our recording, the Pima County Sheriff's Office has not labeled him a suspect.
But Banfield is citing unofficial law enforcement sources. And the details she's dropping are, well, they're specific.
They're incredibly specific.
And damning if they're true.
First, there's the report that Annie's car was seized by police.
Which implies they're looking for forensics.
Right. Transfer evidence, fibers, DNA, soil. Seizing a vehicle is a significant step, but it's still investigatory. However, the second allegation, that's the one that really lit the fuse.
The cameras.
Banfield reported that surveillance cameras near the scene were destroyed.
Destroyed. Not just turned off, not malfunctioned.
Destroyed. That is the claim. And that word implies violence. It implies intent. If you accidentally unplug a camera, that's one thing. If you smash it, that is consciousness of guilt. That is the action of someone trying to hide a crime.
And that's why public opinion shifted so violently. Because if you hear science teacher last saw her, you think, okay, let's wait and see.
Sure.
But if you hear son-in-law destroyed security cameras, the movie in your head changes completely. You start seeing a cover-up.
Exactly. It fills in the blank spaces of the story with a plot. But, and I can't stress this enough, we have to look at the other side of the ledger.
The Pima County Sheriff's Office.
Their official stance is noticeably different. They have stated clearly that the investigation is ongoing and that they are questioning all family members and contacts.
So they aren't just tunneling on Tommaso.
They say they aren't. And just look at the logic here. If law enforcement had concrete proof that Tommaso Cioni destroyed evidence at a crime scene, he likely wouldn't just be a person of interest.
Destroying evidence is a crime in itself.
Exactly. Obstruction of justice, tampering. If they had the smoking gun that the media claims exists, there would probably be handcuffs involved.
Right.
The fact that he is still a private citizen, sitting in his home, albeit a very besieged home, suggests the evidence might be more ambiguous than what's being reported.
It could be technical. Destroyed could mean the data was overwritten or something?
Or a system failure that just looks suspicious. Or maybe the cameras were holed. We don't know. But the gap between no charges filed and prime suspect is where the tragedy lies for this man's reputation.
It's a trial by media. I mean, think about the stress. You're an AP bio teacher, grading quizzes on photosynthesis. Suddenly, your mother-in-law vanishes, which is traumatic enough.
Yeah.
And then you open your phone, and millions of people are discussing whether or not you smashed cameras in the middle of the night.
It's a psychological pressure cooker that most of us can't even comprehend. It's the global media microscope. And it takes those quirks we talked about, the manifestor intensity, the reptiles, and it weaponizes them.
The manifestor becomes the manipulator.
Precisely. And the bassist in the background becomes the guy hiding in the shadows.
But surely if he's innocent, the truth comes out and it all goes away, right?
See, that's the uncomfortable question. Does it? In the digital age, does it ever really go away? Even if the sheriff comes out tomorrow and says, we found Nancy, it was an accident, Tommaso is a hero, the search results for his name will always be associated with this week.
The metadata doesn't forget.
No. He will always be the suspect in the cached version of the internet.
It really highlights the friction between the two systems we have. The justice system, which is slow, methodical, and presumes innocence.
Ideally.
And the information ecosystem, which is fast, emotional, and demands a villain immediately.
The news cycle abhors a vacuum. Nancy is missing. That's a void. The media needs to fill that void with a story. And quiet science teacher waits for police to do their job is a boring story.
Devious son-in-law covers his tracks, keeps people watching.
Even if it destroys the guy's life in the process, collateral damage is part of the business model, unfortunately.
So, synthesizing all this, we have two Tommaso Cionis right now. We have the man his friends know, the guy making pasta from scratch, playing the bass line, teaching kids about how life works.
The poet.
And we have the man the world thinks they know, the prime suspect in a high-profile disappearance.
The dissonance is just deafening. And in the middle of all this noise, we have to remember the actual victim. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. An 84-year-old woman is gone.
That is the core tragedy. And while the pundits argue about cameras and car seizures, that search is still happening on the ground in Tucson.
It is, and the authorities are doing the work. But it's getting harder and harder to hear the facts over all the shouting.
Tommaso Cioni is in the eye of that hurricane. No charges, no arrest, just waiting.
It forces us to ask what we want from our news. Do we want it fast, or do we want it right? Because in this case, fast is creating a narrative that might be completely detached from reality.
It makes you wonder about the nature of modern reputation. For a man who lives life like poetry, this is a stanza he never would have written for himself.
No, and poetry isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's tragic, sometimes it's unfair.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with today. We live in an era where the narrative moves at the speed of light, while the truth moves at the speed of a court filing. By the time the facts actually lace up their shoes, the story has already run a marathon around the globe. If Tommaso Cioni is cleared, can the truth ever really catch up? Can you ever go back to just being the quiet science teacher who plays the bass once the world has decided you might be a villain?
That's the lingering question. And looking at history, the answer is usually no. The shadow tends to stay.
Something to think about the next time you see a breaking news alert. We'll be tracking this story as the actual facts, not just the rumors, come to light. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Stay curious, stay critical, and maybe don't believe everything you scroll past.